How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get that imagination cranked up, get into some creativity, and it's time to get inspired. And today's inspiration comes from Beauvais. Again, comments down below. Let me know if I'm saying it wrong, which I probably am. Wonderful artist. Really love his stuff. I like this piece in particular, and I want to talk to you guys about this one because I thought it was great. I feel like every part of it just works together really well. You've got pretty much your main line of movement right through here. The compositions are really nice. You've got a really great pose with a nice silhouette here, and a really strong pose there. And then you've got all these extra parts that lead the eye right back into it. You've got these beautiful purple flower plant objects that kind of have a flow and a line of movement or a line of action to them that lead up to the main point of this piece. You've got the top of the Statue of Liberty pieces that do that as well. You've got the city skyline that eventually goes and kind of points in there. You've got the clouds that frame the moon or this other world back there and frame the piece really well. So you've got this flow here, you've got a flow there, you've got a flow here, you've got a flow there. Just so really well thought out and a great piece, great color as well. I know for myself I tend to do a lot of black and white. I hardly ever use color, so I'm always fascinated with color. Thing I need to get into, and I'm kind of at that early stage, so I'm really in love with that. Now this piece I really liked as well. I remember when I was younger I used to play a game called Battle Chess, I believe. It was on the old DOS computer when I was real little. This is a great piece. It reminds me of that so much. A great action scene right here for sure. Really nice balance, and I like how this character is leaning up on that piece. The perspective is really interesting here too. And you've got these, you have another storytelling pose set up right here because something would have had to have happened right before this, and something's going to happen right after it. So you're getting right into that bulk of that grit of that storytelling piece, which really, I think, enhances any sort of work or composition for sure, when you can invite the reader to tell a little bit of a narrative before and a little bit of a narrative of where they think the story would go afterward. Kind of a little bit of a choose your own adventure by putting your composition in this way. Really great. I like this. It shows how he uses reference for that. I tend to not talk about reference too much, and I should probably do a discussion on that someday. So remind me, comments down below. Another great, I always like to see how their pieces start, or how the rough illustration work, and then the early process stuff. I know for me, I always love the behind the scenes stuff in DVDs. I like looking at people's sketchbooks almost more so than their finished work, because I feel like, to me, that stuff speaks louder. I really like this one. I thought this was, I think the perspective seems a little funky with the feet here, but that being aside, I think I would probably move that foot up and over a little bit. But this plug in of the head right into the machine is a really cool idea. That's why I really like this one, more just for the idea of it behind there. Really cool. And I urge you guys to check out more of his stuff. I'll throw a link in the description down below where you can see all of his great stuff. I mean, look at these pieces. The color in here is really gorgeous too. A very lizard-like style dragon. I always like to see the different kinds of dragons that people come up with, or monsters, because you can see the infusion of different actual creatures into those. Gorgeous stuff. I like this guy too. But I did want to share a quote that I was able to find from Beauvais, and he said, "Paint like you don't care and make it look easy. But if you think that's easy, then you just don't care." It's a really interesting quote. I think there's a lot of truth. I get inspired, at least, for creating videos and kind of the style of Bob Ross, and I think we've talked about this before. Not that I'm necessarily drawn to his style of painting, but just the style of his presentation, for sure, is that he did stuff open. When there would be mistakes, he'd just go with it and roll with it, and I think that's trying to have something like that with animation was kind of one of the goals behind this video. So I always try to make stuff look like I don't care, make it look easy. But as you can see, you if you've watched any of these videos before, sometimes that doesn't always come across. Sometimes you got to put a lot of thought and stuff in there to make sure you're getting things to work out. But there's a lot of work behind that too. So I think that this is more of a different kind of quote than we really look at. But I think for any sort of performance work where you're painting in front of people or playing in front of someone, you want it to feel like it's natural, I think is the main goal, and it takes a long time to get to that point. So let's go ahead and get into some animation. We're continuing on with our little pole jump that we've been working on for the last couple of days. If you're not familiar with what we'll be doing for the rest of the video, watch the last couple. I think we're on part 3 now. We've been using the Goon rig. It's part of the How to Cheat in Maya series. It runs about $15-20. You can probably pick it up either on Amazon or I'll throw a link in the description below. A great rig. It isn't free, but I tend to think it's low cost of entry. Great rig to play around with. So let's go ahead and get playing in here. Let's watch it first and see where we're at. Okay, a couple things that really stick out. We need to polish this stuff a lot. I want to hit this pose and hold this pose a little bit more and do a breakdown in between there and do how he gets from this pose to that pose. We need to do the walk back here, so we need to actually lift up those steps and add a little bit of movement to the hips and everything. There's a little bit of grit in there. I think we need another breakdown so it's not just pose A sliding into pose B. This run still needs a lot of work, but I don't think we're going to work on that today. I think we'll stick towards the beginning and the end, which we haven't really done any more with. We've been just working on the middle yesterday. And I also think we might need a couple more frames between 139 and 133-ish, just so that we can have it hit and then slide rather than there's a tiny bit of a hold, and I'd either want it to go blend the movement a little bit more where it hits and slides at the same time, or we hit and then slide. I feel like it's not really committing to either of those right now, so we either need to hold it a little bit more or cut a couple of frames, because right now it's right in one of those and that's more of a timing note than really a posing. I think the posing is okay for right now. And then I want to work on the landing and doing probably another 10 or 20 frames at the end. So that's just, again, I'm trying to do these videos a little bit different, talk to you guys about how I'm thinking when I'm approaching a shot, when I'm opening it up, just to get you guys, if you're just starting to begin with animation, kind of how I break down my workflow. Again, I'm trying to keep these where I'm just opening the file and then coming back and recording that with you guys and sharing that with you. So there's nothing else that I'm doing off camera with these shots. I'm just doing them with you guys. So that being said, let's break apart the first 75, 80 frames. I think that's maybe 85. Just set our frame range for what we'll really be looking at here. Again, we did break down a lot more of the middle part yesterday, so I'm gonna, even though there's a lot of stuff I'd like to fix and break down further, I think the important part is to hit where we need to here. So I like everything here. I like everything about 20. Delete that. Delete that. So we can hold what we have here. Want that a little bit longer. And take 18. And now I'm gonna go ahead and give myself an extra 15 frames in here. So let's go minus. Actually, let's just do minus 20 for right now. Just so I can have a few more frames to play with that stuff here. Take 12, move that to about 10. Delete that. 0, 21 to about 7. Let's see that now. Yeah, let's just look at our timing here. I think we could hold this first move a little bit more. Let's open our graph editor up here. And give it a couple more frames there. And we'll hold this foot till about 10. Look at our translate to Z. We'll get that a little bit tighter. We can have a little bit of movement there, but not very much. And we'll grab this foot. Lift it up here. Plant it down probably at about 6. And about 3. Let's see that now. And I think I'll hold it on the ground for another frame there. I don't think it needs to be as high of a step, so let's make that a little bit lower. And maybe a little bit higher, and we'll just drag it a little bit. So I'll throw a little bit of rotate down there. A little bit of lift. And let's get our translate. Yeah, that might be a little bit too big. So let's bring that rotate down a little bit more. Okay, that feels fine. And we'll hold it there till about 25. Till about 20, 30 or so. Let's see that now. Alright, I think I'm going to just shorten our frame range just so I'm looking at this first portion a little bit more, so I'm just focusing in there. I think this arm is going a little too far back, so let's look at that rotate Y, and let's just let it go a little bit more forward. Let's see. I'll take what we have at 15 and hold that to about 6. And we will start at 9. Just trying to mix up the timing of everything so everything isn't hitting all at the same time. And head and neck. Up hit there. Take away out 17, move that there. Let's see. I feel like I want to hit 4 about 9, so it's leading it there. myself a couple more frames here. Maybe lose a frame there. Let's see. Still don't like the way this arm moves so much, so it will swing forward a little bit. And then have it hit at about 12, so it's still moving back a little bit more. I hit a little bit sooner. We could start maybe at 10. Bring that to 7. Let's see. And maybe 8. And perhaps a little less overshoot forward. So let's see. And this one could maybe go there. Could drag back a little bit as well. So forward a little bit and then back. Just so we get a little bit of looseness in those arms. Alright, it's a little extreme, but we'll clean it up there. Yeah, let's look at that now. Okay. And I think I might just universally pull that back a little more, just so our silhouette's still there. As long as that works a little better. Yeah, let's focus in on that portion a little bit more. So we could do a little less overshoot there. And let's see it. And let it go a little bit sooner. Alright, now let's look at the hips. Let's raise them up a little bit on that step. And look at our transit lines there. And a little bit of movement up and down there, just so we have some keep alive in those hips, they don't lock off there. And let's see that now. And set that, undershoot it a little bit. Let's see. There we go. approach it in a similar fashion. A little bit of keep alive there. Just so we get a little bit of twist in those hips. So we're still keeping the integrity of the pose, but just adding a little bit of move and keep alive in that body so that it doesn't completely lock off and everything. So let's look at it from a little bit further back. See how that's feeling. I still think maybe the head should not be going down just yet. So I'll give it maybe 2 more frames before we do that. So we have a little bit of variation there. That might be a little too much. So let's scale that back a little bit. And let's look at the translate Z there, just so that doesn't completely lock off here. Which it doesn't totally, but I think we should probably do a little bit more there. Let's see that now. So yeah, there's a little bit of sway forward and back there, a little bit of pull on the hips. So we're still doing basically the same move that we had before, but we're just adding a little bit of kind of keep alive on the body and everything, and holding those same poses that we had before here too. Let's go and drag the toe a little bit. Lift the toe up, give me 2 frames and flat that off. And let's see how that looks. Maybe 1 frame sooner. Go ahead and save our file. We are using Autodesk Maya 2014 for today's video, by the way. In case I haven't mentioned it, check out the links in the description below if you want more information on that. And let's look at the wrist here. Swing it forward a little bit. And back. Just so I can loosen that up a little bit as well. Just trying to keep the same stuff really, but just add a little bit of looseness to it. There we go. Alright. Now we don't need to overshoot so much, and I think we can go a frame sooner there. Let's see. Maybe a frame later there. Yeah, let's see that now. Okay, and we'll do a little bit on the forearm as well. It's like right here, we'll do just a little bit forward, a little bit back. We'll take what we have there. Okay, and let's look at our graph editor, clean that up a little bit. Key one here, just so we can add a little bit of life to the beginning there. Just a teeny bit of movement there. A little bit less, a little bit sooner. Let's see. One more frame. And maybe we'll just do a little bit of this, just a teeny bit. Just so there's some movement, it feels like it's a little too stiff. So, there we go. Okay, and let's look at this arm here. Drag it back a little bit there. Forward a little bit there. And then back. Okay. And again, we don't need very much of this at all. This arm's going to be try and keep it a little bit more stiff than our other arm, but we still want a little bit of movement throughout. Let's see. And maybe about 2 frames sooner on that. Let's see. And a little bit less on that, a little bit more here. Maybe something like that, taper it off a little bit. This one's probably still a little too much. Still maybe a little bit more, or a little bit less on that. Feels like it's a little too much. Okay, and we'll look at this wrist here. Add a little bit of drag there. A little bit of forward here. A little bit of back there. And go there. Let's see how that feels. It's always good to over-exaggerate and pull back. So you make sure it's working, and then you can just add a little bit of that. There we go. And yeah, I think I want the head to be about 2 frames sooner than everything. And still maybe a little bit sooner. I'll ease out of there maybe a little bit more. So I want the head to kind of lead a little bit more. Maybe we could let give me about 2 more frames from here to where we kind of get our resting position. Let's see that now. Slow into that movement a little bit more. A little bit of overshoot up. Let's see. Try and add a little bit of life into that look as well. Okay, now let's go here. Alright, I feel like that's starting to work. What are we looking at for time? How long have we spent on that? Okay. I'll try to get good time management working on this as well. So let's go ahead and save our file while we're at it. And then let's look at the next kind of set here, which will go at 20 to probably 60. Actually, let's give me about 10 to 60 because I want to get the go about an extra 12 frames in here, an extra second or two. So give me minus 50 here. And we'll take everything punch in a bunch of extra frames here so we can hold that and add an acting beat into there. So let's look at it now. So start at minus 33. Yeah, let's look at it now. Yeah. Okay, so we can get set that. We can have it go. Look slowly up. Let's see how it would feel. Okay, so we want to hold this initial kind of look down for a while longer. And go up to about 34. Delete that. Let's see it now. Because we want it to be looking up to the top here. So maybe it should be a little bit higher. That should be a little bit higher as well. So it's a slow pan up of the head as he's kind of looking at what he's going to be seeing. The head feels like it kind of locks there. So maybe not quite. A little bit of drag in the head, kind of lead by the neck. Let's look at it now. Let's see. We'll do a little bit of slow in and slow out there. Try that now. And give me about 6 more frames or 8 more frames of hold here. So let's go back to our minus 50 there. And so you're going to hold at the beginning and hold at the end of that move. Go about 6, maybe 8. Yeah, doesn't really matter, but just enough so that we can make sure that we. So let's see it now. Okay, so we get that acting beat as his head looks up there. Okay, and let's go a little bit better, see if we can polish that out a little bit more. So we'll delay it by about 2 frames. Overshoot it a little bit and have it come down. Let's see that now. Still drag it a little bit more. Let's see that now. There we go. So get a little bit of that drag in the chin. Okay, let's look at the neck itself now. Hit that maybe a frame sooner. Overshoot it a little bit. Might be a little too much. Okay, and then I think we'll hit that, but about 50, so we have a little bit more of a blending of that head movement into where we're going to be going. Ease out of that and ease into there a little bit more. Let's see that now. Holds for a little too long there. Okay. Alright, we still need to loosen up that a little bit more, but I think we got a good acting beat in there. And we got it so it looks like he's thinking, looking towards that pole, kind of examining what might be going on. So let's take a look at it in context of the whole shot. So let's look at what we're going with. -39. So we start here. You see how it plays within context of the whole shot, which goes till 153. Alright, and save our file here again. Remember, it's always good to save multiple versions and save often, and let's just see how this first bit that we were working on is playing out. I think we've got some good texture in our timing and everything right now, so that's good. Still have a lot of grit in it. I don't want to pull out of that last part, but let's now look at the second portion of this beginning part, which is going to be this walk back, which I want to be slow, small steps there, but actually get those in, which we don't really have. So that would mean we'll be looking at frame range 26 to 100, I guess, right now. Yeah, let's just look at 26 to 83. Okay. Let's save our file again, and I'm going to save a second version here. So one. Saving sometimes takes a while, so I was just pausing there. And then I was going to skip this, but I figured I'll show you how I save files. You guys will probably come up with your own way. But how I do it is, so this one we're just calling it pull jump. So I always just add an anim after that. I guess it's a habit kind of a thing. And that way, if I had another pull jump, I could have it be anim version 2 or something like that. And then I'll have another word in there that is part, and then 3 would be, this is the third part we're working on today. Obviously we had part 1, which was the first day, and I saved it as 1A was when I opened the file, and 1B was when I closed the file. So that saves a session at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and same there. This one is the one I saved before I even got in here, which would pretty much be the same as 2B, but I like having redundant files just in case something happens and corrupts it. And just because we put in a decent amount of work that I think is, I don't necessarily want to lose in case there was a crash or something like that, I'm just going to save it off here again, and I'm just going to go as pull jump, which would be the name of the shot that you're working on. I throw an anim just in case I wanted to say this would be like an acting shot or animation shot, or just to give a little bit of description of what it is, if it's like a blocking, or if you wanted to give a little more detail as to what portion of that shot you're working on. And then the part 3 or part 1 or whichever part you're on, and then A, B, C, or D for whatever version you're on of that part for the day. It's kind of the way that my system works. It's a little weird, but maybe it gives you ideas of how incrementally I save different files. Just because I'm doing this right now, I guess I'll show you how it looks in reality is kind of something like this. So every day when I open this other shot that I'm working on, it'll be like version 1A, version 1B, version 1C. Again, it gets a little ridiculous to version 6N, or as you can see, that it just helps me to make sure that I'm saving incrementally. If I mess up something and I want to revert back to another one, I have another version of that saved. And that's how it works. For me, you guys will probably come up with your own system, but it gives you something to think about. So let's, I'm going to pause the broadcast here again just for a second because it takes a little while to save while I'm okay, that's just kind of a side note, but I figured I'd share that with you guys, just in case. I don't think I've showed you kind of my weird saving methodology, but I find that it really helps. Sometimes I need to go back and I want to revert to an earlier version, and if I would have saved over that, it wouldn't be something that I could access. And then once I'm kind of done with the shot, like I've come to a point where I've showed it to other people and it's working, I'll delete everything except for like maybe the last 6 versions. And then if I want to go in there, I can just build new versions off that. So I don't always have to have a million versions of the shot saved onto my computer once the shot's done, but that's just while I'm working on a shot. Okay, so let's get these steps in here. So go here, raise that foot up. Actually, let's keep that foot on the ground for a few more frames. So that way the hips will kind of lead the movement there a little bit. So you see the hips, they start to go back a little bit before, kind of like to lead with my hips a little bit. So the foot would stay on the ground as long as it can here. And we'll raise it up there, plant it down. And set that one. Raise it up here. Plant it down. Again, we want these to be smaller steps. Translate Y's, kind of balance them out a little bit so we make sure that we're not really going like a really tall one and a really short one. Although, unlike with kind of the cycles that we do sometimes, I don't mind having a lot more variety in something like this. And for this one, we want it to feel like a careful step, so I'm going to drag and then lift up. Plant down. So delete that and go here. So we'll drag before the highest point of the contact and lift up a couple of frames before we'll drag a few frames before the passing position and lift up a few frames before the contact on the rotate. That to me kind of is my little cheat way of thinking about careful steps. Oi, my speech, wonderful. So we get a little bit of a more careful placed step, so you get that little bit of lift up before it plants down, which kind of adds to that feeling of it's a purposeful kind of a step versus more of a just casual step. You get that little bit of extra effort. So let's see that now. And I think we could still scale those back a little bit more, because I don't want these to feel like they're very big steps. So maybe we'll just take the translate Y and we'll scale those back down a little bit more. But we want to make sure that we're still not going to be intersecting the ground here when we have our drags there. So try to do something like that. Alright, that feels okay. Let's look at the other foot. Hold that there. Lift it up a little bit. Plant down, set there. Lift it up a little bit. Plant down. And we'll go a few frames and lift up with the heel. And plant down with the heel. Lift up with the heel. And plant down with the heel. And let's see. Okay, I think it's a little over exaggerated for that stuff, but let's scale it back and find something that works here for us. And again, don't need so much rotate here. Bring that back, bring that back. Let's look at the hips themselves. Do a little bit of up here, a little bit down, a little bit up there, a little bit down, a little bit up. The hips do feel a little bit balance off here, like off balance. But the foot's going to be going back there, so I'm not too worried about that. But if this was just a pose that we were trying to do as an individual pose and not like it's a pose in the middle of some movement, I would definitely adjust the hips there. Raise that up. Bring that down. Raise it up here. And bring it back down. Now let's look at those translate Ys here. Okay. We're going to keep that there. Actually, let's lock that in here. We'll do a little bit of down before we go up here, just to kind of anticipate that we're going to be going back up. Those up and downs a little bit more. And again, as opposed to some of the cycle walk stuff that we do in other videos, I'm not going too much by a formula here. This is more just a feel for this stuff, because we want it to have, even though humans usually walk on 12s to 14 frames per step, it's pretty unnatural that they'll hit exactly 7 frames, 7 frames, 7 frames, 7 frames. Usually it'll be like 6, 8, 7, 7. Like there's a little bit of variety in there. So we want to make sure that we're not doing exactly even stuff. Makes it feel a little too robotic when you go too even there. Which for a cycle, if you're going like for a game cycle, you want it to be pretty even. I probably could even do a little more variety in my cycles too, but I don't have as much problem with it in game animation, because that stuff you're just trying to make it look as good as you can, so that it's not distracting Where in something like this, it's not gonna be a walk that's gonna be repeated over and over and over again. It'd just be for a shot, so it's just for that one viewing or a couple of viewings rather than something that you're gonna see every time you're playing that character. Just anecdotally, while we continue working on this walk here, there was I'm a huge fan of Blizzard Entertainment, which you probably noticed from all the books and stuff I have back there. But there was they redid a bunch of their characters and redid their animations for some of their characters in one of their games. And one of the characters had I thought it was a great run, but it was a little bit over the top. It was a great run cycle, it really was, really well polished. But it was a little over the top. It had some extra bounce in it, really full of life, a great run cycle. But it was a little over the top, and if somebody had to look at that day in and day out while they were playing their character, it got a little distracting and a little too over the top, which didn't mean that it was bad animation. It was really well done and full of character and full of life and very cartoony and over the top, but a great piece of animation. But like I said, for movies where you could see something like that and it wouldn't be distracting at all, it'd be actually add to the character and the personality. But for games, if you get something like that, the idea is that you want the animation to be really nice and really polished, but almost innocuous at the same time. You don't want that to be focused. You're trying to get the story and get the character from point A to point B. So it's a little bit interesting, and they ended up going back and reverting it, which I was kind of bummed, but I understood why there too. I thought that was a good anecdotal story about the difference between kind of video game animation versus movie or cartoon or television animation or something like that, where you're watching it versus where you're having it as part of the experience. So hopefully that makes sense there. I thought that was an interesting thing to kind of talk about, the difference between doing a walk cycle versus doing a walk or a run or something in part of your animation there. Different approaches to kind of the same thing. It's kind of like the difference between cinematography and TV shows versus the cinematography in movies. Let's see. Just adding a little bit of sway to the hips there. Again, we're probably getting close to our time for today. Yeah, I think we are. So let's just try and add a little more detail into this walk back. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hit up anything on the end of the animation here today, which is okay. There's, like I said, this is as opposed to the sword attack animation right there, which was really 2 beats. It was just an idle and then an attack. This one's got a lot of beats here. We've got a walk, we've got a run, we've got a jump, we've got a landing, we've got a little acting beat. There's lots of stuff in here, so this might be a few more parts, because I don't want to leave you guys with something that's half animated either, just because it necessarily works for the idea. I want to try and spend a little bit longer time with this stuff, so you guys can see what amount of effort and energy and thought processes go into longer frame animation here. And let's do a little bit there. A little bit there. Try to get a little bit of twist in the chest here, but still kind of favor the main pose that we have here, which is still fine. Yeah, let's see that. I think it might be a little too bouncy, so maybe a little bit less up and down. Just scale that back a little bit more. I think this foot should probably be a little bit further back, but we do adjust for that in a second. Yeah, let's do just a little bit of movement in the arms there. scale that back a little bit more here too. And look at this one. Do a little bit of movement there too. So a little bit more forward here. Back there, forward, back there, forward, and then where we're at. And it might be a little too much movement there, so I'll scale that back a little bit more too. Because again, eventually we're going to do the forearms and hands and fingers and everything too in there, so we don't need as much from the roots of the arms there. And let's do toes on here. So we'll drag the toe there, lift it up here, flat down, drag the toe down there, lift it up here, and I'll flat it out. And drag the toe down there, lift it up here, and flat it out. And let's see. Okay, and let's look at this side. And we'll go ahead and drag that toe back there, lift it up here, flatten it out. Drag that toe back there, lift it up here, and flatten it out. And let's see how we're doing. Alright, I think that's workable. Should probably do a little bit of rotate Z, just to get a little bit more of that twist there. So a little bit that way, a little bit that way, a little bit that way, a little bit that way. And let's look at that. Again, we don't need that much, but a little bit. And we'll look at the chest here, and we'll offset that a little bit as well. See that? Okay. And let's look at it from our side view again, and let's see how we're doing. Okay, so like I said, we attacked the first 85 frames, plus we added an extra 40 frames in there too, so I think that was still a pretty good pass. I wish we could have gotten to the end too, but only have really an hour to work with. Try and keep up so that there's not 2-hour videos every day. So let's take a look at stuff that we were able to punch in today. So let's go ahead and play that then. Alright, I think that's definitely working a lot better than the run forward and the ending, which still needs some good passes on, so that's probably what we'll end up hitting tomorrow. But let's take a look at it now as it blends into the whole here. And the jump and the slide are okay. They're not great. They definitely need some polish and stuff, but The run is bare bones there, just the information really, and we need to get some transition from kind of 80 to 105. I feel like is just kind of pose. We need some more breakdowns in there, and then I still want to get some more movement and recoil and just some kind of keep alive. So probably another 20 frames at the end. But I think the beginning we did some good passes on there. We definitely have a nice little acting beat towards the beginning, and that walk works fine. It's nothing amazing, but definitely doesn't take away and gets us to the point that we need to be in so we can do the run. Alright, so let's take a look back at where we started. We're looking at the beautiful work of Den Beauvais. Let me know comments down below. And he said, paint like you don't care and make it look easy. But if you think that's easy, then you just don't care. Care about your work. Try and share it with others. Piggybacking on what we talked about the other day, which was pro bono publico, I believe. And that was for the public good. So try and share what you know, what you're working on. Learn from other people, grow, and just take another step in your journey. It doesn't matter if you fail. You're learning what not to do then. It's okay. It's great. You guys can do it. I believe in you. You are the creative future. So go out there and make something. And I think that'll wrap it up for today. I'm enjoying doing this series with you guys. It's definitely more fun, and I think we can play with some more ideas for sure here. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes. You guys are amazing. And we'll wrap it up before I get too rambly. So we will see you for some more animation tomorrow.